Ever wondered where George Washington might have had dinner? Or what a menu looked like 200 years ago? Some restaurants in America have been around that long, quietly serving meals while the world outside changed. It's Memory Surge. My name is Kevin, and we reveal the 20 oldest restaurants in America. Let's dive right in after you subscribe, of course. White Horse Tavern. Tucked among the cobblestone streets of Newport, Rhode Island, stands a red-shingled building with diamond-paned windows and a quiet atmosphere earned over centuries. The White Horse Tavern, established in 1673, is not just the oldest tavern in America, it is a living relic of colonial resilience. The structure itself dates back to 1652 and was built by Francis Brinley before it became a licensed tavern under William Mays Sr. It was a cozy place that provided shelter, food, and warmth for travelers passing through the colony. Over time, the tavern became the cornerstone of public life. It accommodated town council meetings, court sessions, and served as a haven for British troops and Continental soldiers to indulge in some ale. Today, stepping into the White Horse Tavern feels like entering a time capsule, with its wood paneling, brass chandelier, and dim lights. The menu, though modernized, still draws its inspiration from early New England fare. Meals include fresh native oysters, house-made clam chowder, and duck confit with cranberry glaze. It also has a whiskey and wine section to match the aesthetics. The White Horse remains a fine place to dine, with visual memories of the past. Union Oyster House. Roughly 100 miles north, nestled within the winding streets of Boston, near the historic Faneuil Hall, is the Union Oyster House, one of America's most ancient restaurants. It is both a landmark and a major part of Bostonian identity. The building dates back to the early 1700s, and before oysters were even served, it used to be the offices of printer Isaiah Thomas, who published revolutionary tracts. When it opened as an oyster house, it became a haven for the locals and visitors alike. For almost 200 years, raw oysters have remained at the core of its experience. It also served thick lobster stew, enriched with cream and butter, baked scrod, creamy clam chowder, and Boston baked beans, slow-cooked and served with dark molasses brown bread. Popular personalities such as John F. Kennedy, Daniel Webster, and others have dined at the quiet booths. The Union Oyster House has endured not only the passage of time, but also floods, fires, prohibitions, and even urban renewals, yet it still stands firm. Very few restaurants have stood through civil wars, 2 world wars, and now the digital age. Antoine's Restaurant. In the heart of the French Quarter of New Orleans, another culinary institution has been carving its place into history since the 1840s. Antoine's Restaurant, founded by Antoine Alciatore, is one of the oldest family-run restaurants in America. What began as a humble French Creole bistro grew into a dining palace, serving food along with the city's blend of decadence and tradition. The restaurant brings the spices of the Caribbean along with flair for hospitality. The Alciatore family has run Antoine's for generations, with each successor maintaining the grand traditions of French Creole dishes. The experience is nothing short of theatrical, as the restaurant is credited with inventing one of New Orleans' most iconic dishes, Oysters Rockefeller. The recipe, still a closely guarded secret, is said to include a blend of herbs, butter, and green-baked atop fresh Gulf oysters. Other spectacular dishes on the menu include soufflés, escargots, trout amandine, and others. Antoine's Restaurant has weathered centuries of change through cultural revolutions and social unrest, and it is a place marked by history and where legacy meals have survived. Old Ebbott Grill. The Old Ebbott Grill has served statesmen, lobbyists, tourists, and people from all walks of life since 1856. It started as a modern saloon and slowly developed into a cozy place for comfort, food, and whiskey under gaslight chandeliers. The Old Ebbott stands a block away from the White House and still draws political persons, but also families visiting from Des Moines, as well as art students from Georgetown and Weary Hill staffers looking for happy hour. It is a place of old-world elegance, with oil paintings, vintage photographs, and mounted animal heads that provide a sense of the past but yet timeless. Now, what really made this place pop was the rich menu, known as the Raw Bar. It comprises oysters flown in daily from both coasts. Besides briny delicacies, it also has crab cakes with that golden crust revealing sweet, tender meat. Also the Ebbott burger, filet mignon with brandy peppercorn sauce, and trout parmesan for the elite palates. Evenings at the Old Grill were filled with the smell of grilled seafood, the clink of martinis, and the low murmurs of ambition. Tadesh Grill. Tadesh Grill, established in 1849 San Francisco, is older than the state of California. It started as a coffee stand by Croatian immigrants, feeding hungry miners with strong brews and grilled fish. Over time, it transformed into the West Coast's oldest continuously operating restaurant. From the moment you walk in, your senses are mesmerized by the delicious scent of seafood on the grill. The interior is all wood paneling, white linens, and brass fixtures. The menu is a tribute to classic seafood cuisine, with dishes like cioppino, sand dabs, seafood Louis salad, and petrale sole with Dungeness crab cocktail. It was the go-to lunch spot for career professionals, and the kind of place where you celebrate a retirement with a bottle of Chardonnay, or probably the place you visited because it was where Dad used to go. Keen's Steakhouse. And then there's Keen's Steakhouse, founded in 1885, a place where you went to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. In those days, visitors were greeted with the rich scent of aged beef, pipe tobacco, and dark mahogany wood. Interestingly, Keen's was a men's club of sorts, and an exclusive one too. Women weren't allowed until 1905, when actress Lily Langtry sued for her right to dine there and won. Today, her portrait hangs prominently on the wall. Perhaps Keen's most famous feature is its pipe club, holding more than 90,000 clay pipes on display, each marked with the name of its original owner, inclusive of historical mammoths like Babe Ruth, Albert Einstein, Teddy Roosevelt, and others. Dining at Keen's was a low-key affair. If you got the opportunity to do so, you probably went for the most famous dish, mutton chop, a nice juicy meat that scintillated the taste buds. Some faithful side dishes were baked potatoes and creamed spinach. If you were feeling fancy, you'd top it off with some key lime pie or butterscotch sundae. Buckhorn Exchange. Back in the grit and dust of 1893 Denver, just off the railway tracks, the Buckhorn Exchange stood as a rough-and-tumble saloon founded by Henry H. Zeitz. This spot was in every way a frontier meeting post, where railroad workers, miners, and even outlaws came to have a sip of whiskey and perhaps some grub. Today, the restaurant still has an air of the past with a large number of mounted game heads as wall aesthetics. Moose, elk, buffalo, you name it. The prized restaurant is famous for its wild game menu, comprising elk medallions, Rocky Mountain oysters, quail, and buffalo prime ribs. Today's diners often come for the shock value, but stay for the surprisingly refined ambiance. The restaurant continues to serve a mix of curious tourists and die-hard regulars as one of the last truly authentic frontier saloons. Colombia Restaurant. How about this fascinating restaurant, situated in the heart of Tampa's Ybor City, a Cuban-Spanish enclave, lit up by the clatter of cigar presses and the sounds of flamenco guitar? Colombia Restaurant was born in 1905 and was owned by Cuban immigrant Casimiro Hernandez Sr. It remains one of the oldest family-run restaurants to date. In the 1900s, you were served roast pork, black beans, garlic-laced paella, and other main menu dishes. Today, Colombia has expanded into multiple Florida cities, but the original Ybor location is still the crown jewel. Flamenco dancers still perform in the evening, and it remains a cozy, family-friendly restaurant, now into the 5th generation. Peter Luger Steakhouse. When you cross the Williamsburg Bridge, you'll find an ancient palace of a restaurant hiding in plain sight, the one and only Peter Luger Steakhouse. This happy place was founded in 1887 as a German beer hall. By the early 20th century, the focus shifted to big, dry-aged slabs of beef cooked to perfection in hot broilers. The atmosphere isn't so different today, with the bare-bones decor, gruff waiters, and no music in the background. It is certainly worth it to get a taste of their renowned apple strudel with schlag. In the past, you may have seen factory workers and longshoremen relaxing with a mug of beer and well-garnished beef. Nowadays, it's mostly hedge fund managers, tourists, and food critics, all eager to get a taste of the timeless Peter Luger experience. Musso and Frank Grill. Now let's take you back in time. It's 1919 again, and we are at the Musso and Frank Grill, one of the finest restaurants in California, founded as a literary and film industry hangout spot on Hollywood Boulevard. Musso's has become the unofficial living room for all the great artists of cinema, and you would likely meet movie producers, screenwriters, and even your biggest screen idols. Waiters are in tuxedo jackets, and you can order flannel cakes for breakfast or veal scallopini, while sipping on a Shirley Temple or perhaps their perfectly made martini. Stirred, of course, never shaken. Today, the Musso feels like stepping into a place stuck in time. It's certainly reinvented itself over the years, but it still has those ancient aesthetics and menus that keep people longing to come back. The Berghoff. Next is the Berghoff, founded in 1898 by German immigrant Hermann Berghoff. What started as a saloon, selling homemade beer for a nickel a glass, developed into an actual restaurant. Back then, it was the perfect place for sausage, sauerkraut, and steins of dunkel. When the Prohibition hit, Berghoff pivoted to near beer and root beer, surviving those dry years while many other saloons went out of business. When the 21st Amendment was passed, the Berghoff was one of the first bars in Chicago to get a liquor license, framed and proudly displayed behind the counter. Dining at the Berghoff at that time was a real treat. You had bratwurst, schnitzel, creamed spinach, and the delicious German chocolate cake sitting on heavy porcelain plates. The food was rich and hearty, steeped in culture, and served by waiters wearing lederhosen during the holidays. The Berghoff remains a family business to date, and while the menu has greatly changed to suit the times, adding vegetarian dishes, the original essence is still preserved. Gage and Tolner. The 1890s Gage and Tolner was a sanctuary of mahogany-paneled luxury in a gritty, up-and-coming Brooklyn. It was a time when Fulton Street swarmed with horse-drawn carriages, corseted ladies, and top-hatted businessmen. Gage and Tolner was founded by Charles M. Gage, later on joined by Eugene Tolner, and that was when the restaurant really picked up, becoming Brooklyn's favorite chop house. It was a gentleman's meeting place, with oysters delivered in barrels and mutton served with gravitas. If you wanted to network with great minds while dining in the evenings, G&T was the place. Through the early 20th century, it hosted many big names, but over time, it started to fade. After closing down in 2004, the building sat unused for a few years, then turned into something different, from TGI Fridays to an Arby's, until its miraculous resurrection in 2021. Today, it's been restored to its 19th century glory with original gas lamps, gilded mirrors, and menus from the ages such as clam casino, she crab soup, butter soft steaks, and Parker House rolls. Lombardis Pizza. In the early 1900s, when New York was a city of steam, soot, and ambition, immigrants flooded in, bringing with them dreams and flavors from the old world. Among them was Gennaro Lombardi, a native of Naples who opened what is recognized as America's first pizzeria, Lombardis Pizza. It first started as a grocery store that sold tomato pies wrapped in paper. Lombardis soon installed a coal oven and began baking crispy blistered pies topped with crushed San Marzano tomatoes, mozzarella, and fresh basil. This new taste tease was revolutionary. It was a warm and fragrant little place. The coal oven imparted a char and chewiness to the pizza that no other methods could replicate. Since then, Lombardis has moved from its original location, but remains a pioneer of pizza in America. Red Fox Inn and Tavern. The Red Fox Inn and Tavern is so old, it predates the United States itself. Founded in 1728 in the quaint colonial town of Middleburg, Virginia, it began as a stagecoach stop for travelers who were crossing the Blue Ridge Mountains. The walls were built from local fieldstone, and the meals were mostly roast game, stew, cornbread, and ales. Of course, the menus today are a lot different from what they used to be, but every once in a while, old menus are resurrected to give visitors a taste of the past. Joe's Stone Crab. Joe Weiss arrived in Miami Beach when it was still a mosquito-ridden backwater, not the glamorous place it is today. In 1913, he opened a modest seafood shack on the shore and began serving fried fish and sandwiches. But in the 1920s, everything changed when he discovered the local stone crab, a thick-clawed, elusive crustacean that no one thought to eat because of its shell. Joe was the first to figure out how to cook and crack them. He made a delicacy out of the crab, and since then, the restaurant became known as Joe's Stone Crab. Joe's soon became a sensation and attracted politicians, celebrities, and regulars alike. Most people didn't come for elegance. They came for a taste of stone crab claws dipped in the famous chilled mustard sauce or garlic-creamed spinach. The restaurant still runs today, serving what it serves best, as very few places have mastered the crab claw recipe like Joe's. Commander's Palace. Commander's Palace, with its signature blue and white paint, was founded in 1893. Located in the Garden District of New Orleans, the Victorian mansion-turned-restaurant is unmistakable as it exudes elegance and charm. It was originally opened by Emile Commander and became a go-to for the city's elite. The restaurant served turtle soup, veal chops, oyster Rockefeller, and tasty Creole sauces. In the 1970s, the Brennan family took over and continued to serve exquisite meals with jazz brunches and live music that made you feel like you were in a movie scene. The modern menu is a burst of flavors with highlights like crawfish beignets, bread pudding soufflé with whiskey sauce, flambéed tableside, washed down with well-aged wine. Even after Hurricane Katrina, when the restaurant was badly damaged, it was rebuilt and reopened. It remains a culinary brilliance and one of New Orleans' oldest restaurants. Sam's Grill and Seafood Restaurant. Sam's Grill and Seafood Restaurant started as a small fish stand opened by Michael Mullen Morgan in 1800 San Francisco. Over the decades, the modest stand grew into Sam's Grill and became the most loved seafood restaurant in the city. It was the best place for oysters on the half-shell, Louis salads, cracked crabs, and pétrole sole meunière. There were no elaborate garnishes, just seafood and classic sauces. While much of San Francisco has been swallowed by trend, Sam's Grill remains untethered and retains its old decor. Specialties such as the cioppino, clam chowder, and abalone steak keep its customers coming back for more. Galattoars. To dine at Galattoars is to witness a ritual, one that began in 1905 when Jean Galattoir, a French immigrant, opened his restaurant on Bourbon Street amid a rowdy nightlife. In the early 20th century, Galattoir quickly attracted a mix of local aristocracy, politicians, and eccentric regulars. The menu hasn't changed much since the early 20s. Delicacies such as shrimp remoulade, crab meat maison, oysters en brochette, duck creole, and trout meunière. Amandine are still served with rich sauce and in a classic fashion. The dining room is a peaceful space, with white-tiled floors, ceiling fans, and mirrored walls. Evenings are filled with hums, laughter, and the clinking of kitchenware. Galattoir is still in the business of serving ceremonious old-school meals, giving the new generation a taste of the ages. Cattlemans Steakhouse. In 1910, Cattlemans Steakhouse was born, much like a local cafeteria serving hungry ranchers and cattle haulers in Oklahoma City's bustling stockyards district. This was a restaurant built for rugged men who worked the rail yards and wrangled herds. It is said that in 1945, the ownership of the restaurant changed hands in a late-night wager, where a gambler rolled the dice and won the entire establishment. This folklore has been the mystery of the Cattleman's Steakhouse. As for the menu, bone-in ribeyes, T-bones, filet mignon, and the famed lamb fries. Let's not forget blue cheese dressing and cinnamon rolls, just because they are awesome. Cattleman's is still around, unvarnished, and remains a piece of Western heritage. Francis Tavern. Few American restaurants can boast of aiding a revolution, but the Francis Tavern can. It was established in 1762 by Samuel Francis, a West Indian-born patriot. The tavern quickly became a hub for revolutionary activities. George Washington didn't just dine there, he gave his famous farewell speech to his officers there in 1783. In the 18th century, the tavern was renovated with wood panels for refuge against the cold New York streets. It was known for flickering candles, the scent of roasted meat, and tankards of ale. Through the centuries, the tavern underwent changes and even brief closures, but always returned to service. The menu has also greatly changed, shifting from the simple grills and ale to more varieties to accommodate diverse palates. Upstairs, you can explore artifacts from the American Revolution, while downstairs, you can grab a bourbon cocktail with mouth-watering meat-based dishes. The tavern remains a sacred place, not just for meals, but for the spirit of independence. What are your thoughts on these old restaurants? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.